Good morning, my dear ones. Mount Adams Buddhist Temple, and we have a teacher this morning who's going to lead us into the paths of wisdom. It's Suko Minbao, who lives in a little cabin up a river, and I'll let her introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her journey. And Suko, I'm going to uh, pin you for everyone. Let's see if I can do it. Hold on. Pin. Spotlight for everyone. That's you. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ty. Hello, everyone. I'm going to unpin myself so I can see you all while I'm talking. Because the last thing I need is to see a giant bald nun while I'm trying to give this little Dharma talk. I feel like I haven't been here very regularly, so I feel like there's something we do before we Dharma talk. Is there would anybody like to volunteer what it happens right off the bat? Do we do the chant of compassion? Do we do a Donnelly? What do we do?
Usually, my friend, we will do the chant of compassion and then do the incense chant and the Danlei, but it is your call of what we do this day.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Would anyone like to volunteer to do the chant of compassion?
I will be happy to.
I think I see a couple people. Okay.
Good.
Absolutely.
Chant of compassion. Let us surround all forms of life with infinite love and compassion. Especially may we send out compassionate thoughts to those in suffering and sorrow, to those in doubt and ignorance, to all who are striving to attain truth, and to those whose feet stand close to the great change called death. We wish them all wisdom, mercy, and love. May the infinite light of wisdom and compassion so shine within us that the errors and vanities of self may be dispelled. So shall we understand the changing nature of existence and awaken into spiritual peace.
Thank you. Thank you, Franco. Wonderful. Now, I have lit some incense for us all, and I would love to ask my teacher, Tai Z, would you do the incense chant? Thank you, sir.
Incense chants, precepts incense, liberation of views incense, clouds of lighted incense pouring into the Dharma realms, offering to the highest teachers in the 10 directions. I respectfully bow to the altar of the incense cloud, Bodhisattva.
I love your voice. Hello, folks. I have a sneaking suspicion my internet is cutting in and out. So if I suddenly go wonky, you kind of do this, give me a notice, and I'll stop for a second, let it catch up. I live out in the woods, as Tychosen said, in a cabin with notoriously unreliable everything. Power goes out, internet goes out. I have learned a lot of lessons in just, well, now what? And waiting for everything to come back on. As much as I'd like to think I can live off the grid, I definitely miss my Amazon shopping when everything goes out. So today I mentioned that I got on my John Deere tractor and went down the canal to the local farm stand and got myself some veggies and had an impromptu lunch with a neighbor. That is how my practice goes here. Things happen. I keep myself open and people come to me. I find them. It's usually unpredictable and unexpected. And in my practice, as things happen in the world around us, I see themes of anxiety and issues that people bring to me. And for a while, living up here where we had a catastrophic fire and so many people lost their homes, it was the fire. And I was grateful to be of service to people who had lost their homes and who live with the PTSD from the fire. But lately it's been a pervasive anxiety about world affairs, most particularly our own government. And the anxiety centers around a feeling of helplessness while we watch inhumane acts happen around us, and feeling like we can't affect change and that we can't do anything about it. And these things are being done to us. I've heard statements like, I feel sorry for children being born into this world. I have a friend who sold her house with no plans. She's just reacting in terror and wanting to go to some part of the country where she can escape all this. I have another friend who has left the country and is building a home in Mexico. There is just this undercurrent of fear among a lot of people because we've never in our lifetimes, most of our lifetimes, we've not experienced before. And so in my wise, nun-like ways, I fall back on the story everyone has heard, and that's the story of the star thrower, the child on the beach, right? So there is, and it goes like, there's a man walking along the beach, and he sees up in the distance what looks like a child who's dancing or squatting down and standing up doing something. And as they get closer, they ask the child, "What are you doing?" And he looks around and sees that there are starfish all over the beach. And the child doesn't answer right away, but instead bends down, picks up a starfish, and throws it into the ocean. And then the child says, well, the sun is coming up, the tide is going out, and these starfish will die. So I'm throwing them back into the ocean. And the man looks around at the hundreds of starfish that are all over the beach and the miles of beach ahead of him with more starfish. And he says, you can't possibly make a difference. Just too many. And as the child leans down and picks up another starfish, he says, well, and he throws it into the ocean, says, I made a difference for that one. And then I wisely nod my head like the nun that I am. And the person I'm talking to says, yes, we must. I get the story. We do what we can for the world around us. We take care of our own. We try to take care of our little piece of the pie of the universe. And we can be satisfied that we've made a difference for that one. And then I walk away, right? Having done my job. But it doesn't stick. What I have found is the anxiety doesn't go away. That perhaps for a while the person feels better. But when they wake up the next morning and there's a million more starfish to throw back in the ocean and they can't possibly throw them all back, it's completely overwhelming. So I've been sitting with this, that is this an effective teaching to just focus on what's here in front of us when so many people want to affect change and more of a global, a bigger, they want the world to be better. They want people to do better, but we can't make people do what we want. So there's this frustration and this anxiety and this pain. And there's what we in Buddhism call suffering, a dis-ease with what what our situation is. And I didn't have an answer for that. And on my commutes to work, which are quite long, I often listen to podcasts or YouTube lectures, or, I mean, let's face it, true crime. And I more likely than not, ghost stories. But I was thinking of a teacher I had, my first Buddhist teacher, who was Gil Fronsdahl in Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City. And before I got into my car, I remembered, I think he records his lectures. Why don't I just put him on repeat and just listen to him on the way home? And I listened to one Dharma talk, and it just sort of answered some questions for me, maybe in the incredibly unsatisfactory way Buddhists do, by creating more questions. But he often talks about suffering. It's one of his every Dharma teacher has their little teachings that they love. For me, it's always perspective. I love to talk about the perspective of how we look at things. For him, he often brings up the concept of clinging. And I've heard him say it many times before, but it's like grasping. And while your fist is closed around something or being held closed, it takes an effort and it's not quite comfortable. But we often do it without thinking. And what if we just opened that hand and relaxed that hand? And he uses that metaphor in a lot of different teachings. Well, in this particular teaching, he was discussing being angry. And I felt that what he said really applied to this phenomena I was seeing, in that the magic Buddhist teachings weren't working and people were still so caught up in anxiety and fear. And what he said was, when we, thank you, Mindai, when we want something to change, and he used the example of, there are too many letters in the alphabet. I want less letters in the alphabet. But maybe what would be more relatable is, I don't like our president. He does inhumane things. People are being kidnapped. I want this to stop. That's fine. That's wonderful. I want to do something about it. That's great. That's great. Perhaps maybe you can write letters or join a local protest group or walk to your capital or whatever it is. But what if when you engage in that activity, it doesn't ease your own anxiety? You're still angry. You still have your fist closed. You're still pounding your fist on the table. Well, this is where the Buddhist teaching of, it's like drinking poison and hoping that your enemy dies. It's you that you're hurting at this point. It's you who's doing the clinging, who's hanging on to this. It's got to change. It's making me mad. I'm angry. And the way he talked about it was that you are now compromising your own inner peace and your own inner wisdom. And that your inner wisdom is so important. And when you close yourself off and you become angry, you are no longer approaching the problem as, is there something I can do to help? You are approaching it out of anger, out of clinging, out of suffering. And he talked about how we can intellectualize this and think about it, but what if we let go of the thinking about it and just felt it? What does it feel like in your body to do so? It feels really good to do something to help another person. It doesn't feel so great to be angry at the Anger is a good catalyst for change. But are we hanging on to it too tightly? Are we hanging on to the feeling? Is it changing us? And is it changing our internal peace and our internal world? He even went so far to say it reduces our intelligence, our wisdom somehow, because we are no longer thinking in this expansive, what can I do to help way, but in a much tighter, hardened way of this pisses me off. It's great to be angry. But as the Buddha said, suffering comes from delusions, from clinging, from not accepting what is. And is that what we're doing when we can't let go of how upset we are? And what the recommendation was try opening that hand. What does it feel like to let that go? It's not a loss of your identity or a lack of caring for your neighbor. It's not meaning that, oh, I'm just going to sit back and accept what happens to me. No. Yes, we are taking care of the starfish around us. Of course we are. We're good Buddhists. We take care of people. We respond when someone asks us for help. But what do we do about those that are out further off of our plate, outside of our piece of pie? We feel for them. We worry about them. But if we take it so far as to make ourselves ill, to make ourselves flee or hide or spout anger online. I can't help myself. I read comments and I'm always shocked at how much violence is in comments. These are strangers. When did we become so attached to verbal violence? Is that affecting change? So yes, let's save the starfish. But as Buddhists, can we, and this is the totally unsatisfactory part of Buddhist advice and teaching, is can we look inside and see what are we doing to ourselves as well? Because we're a starfish. You're all starfish too. And you deserve to be back in the ocean. Have you taken yourself out of the ocean? And by clinging on to wants and desires, clinging on to the emotions of anger. In our meditations, we experience emotions. We experience emotions all the time. That's what emotions are for. They're for feeling. But they're not for hanging on to. They're not anything that can really be hung on to without constant energy being put into it. Oh yeah, I'm angry today. I forgot. I'm going to be angry. But if we take that energy away from the emotion, from the feeling, we're still caring people. It's not like we suddenly stopped caring for people. It's not like we're being passive or we're not concerned or we're not engaging in protest. We're just not damaging ourselves while we do so, and we're not closing ourselves off while we do so. We're staying open. We're listening. We're being available to others, but particularly to ourselves. And this really struck me. I felt like this is going to help me going forward. That my cute and wonderful story of the star thrower is profound and is important, and we've all heard it. But the one thing that we don't think about is that the child is not angry that the tide is going out and the starfish are dying. And the child is not yelling about it or being, swearing at the sun or being angry that the seasons are changing. The child is just helping and keeping themselves open and honest and able to communicate with this stranger who walked up the beach. They're not closing themselves off. Their hands and their hearts remain open. And I feel like that's the second part of this story that is really helpful. This lovely woman I had lunch with, we talked about this and talked about the story of the stargazer, and of course she had heard it. And she's a very kind lady. And she says, yes, I try to take care of the people around me. My son, my grandson, they were the ones running the food cart there. And so she was really proud of them and was there supporting them. But the conversation inevitably turned to all the atrocities that's being done, despite our help. So it isn't easing our internal world to just pick up a starfish and throw it back in the ocean. There's a little more work we have to do, and it's almost like unwork. We have to open ourselves up and unwork. Let go of the anger. It's okay to be angry, but when we hang on to it, that's when we cause our own suffering. When we wake up angry and we go to bed angry, and when we're, well, because I am brutally honest and have no filter, I haven't seen my brother for weeks, and he is an ill person. I need to see him more regularly, but he's a Trump supporter and likes to talk about it, and he's angry. And I've been using the excuse that he's too angry, but it's actually me, I think, who might be a little angry about it. And I always swore I'd never let politics get in the way of my family relations, and yet I have. So this has helped, of course, helping others always helps yourself the most. And this has helped me understand that I too am closing myself off. Obviously, he's deluded. He watches Fox News. He can't possibly be getting the truth. He's not the person I used to know. I don't even know how to talk to him anymore. Well, who's drinking the poison now? That's me. I just drank a whole global poison, and now I'm feeling these feelings against my own kin. And as Gil talked about in his Dharma talk, I'm just doing damage to myself. I'm dumbing down my internal wisdom and closing off my internal space. And I'm doing a great disservice to myself. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And I'm excited about it. Of course, also the way Buddhism works is it's like, oh, I should have had a V8. And I can't wait to have that V8 because I feel better now. And I think that I can do better now in my teachings, in my consultations that I have. I'm no longer going to stop at the cute story and then not wisely nod my head and then go back to my daily work. I'm going to think about how the little child, children are such teachers, isn't angry about the starfish being stranded on the beach and isn't curling up into a fetal position out of pure anxiety because they can't save them all, which wouldn't be effective to anyone. The child is staying open and doing what they can without clinging to any sort of emotion, just doing it, doing what they can and making a difference for this one and then this one. So I hope this talk was helpful today. I have no more wisdom than you do. I'm just figuring this out as I go along as well. But it was a nugget that I stumbled upon instead of listening to true crime that just really became an earworm and got into my head, and I wanted to share it. So thank you. Before we go into meditation, I was wondering, I like to give space for any comments if someone feels they would like to say something. And you can just speak up because I may not see you.
I would like to say something, please.